Hello, howdy, sup, alright mate, aloha, g'day! This is Travel Tuesdays for Foodie fans. Bryce Morrison is your host and I'm Carla, your colorful commentator. However you greet your friends, we're excited you're here for the journey as we take you across these United States and around the world to find the very best in food and wine. Join us every Tuesday as we interview foodie travelers, award-winning bartenders, restaurateurs, and more to find out their go-to bars and restaurants and how to find them. Enjoy the show!
And now, part 2.
You've been all over the world. If you had to pick, I said Central Florida, hometown earlier, but anywhere in the world, if you had to pick one place anywhere in the world to go back to, I could snap my fingers and you're there right now eating that favorite dish, what would it be?
I'm going to give you 2 places. Number one, Lumpia off the Little Blue Motorcycle Cart in Camsur, Philippines. All right? Like, beam me up, Scotty. I'm ready to go. And then a little lumpia, a little noodle bowl, and a full of sugar Mountain Dew, and like $1 or $2, and like happy as can be. So like that would be number one. Extremely close, number 2 would be Oaxaca, Mexico. So I've been blessed to have done a little missionary work over the last decade or so, all over Mexico, but primarily in the state of Oaxaca. So like you have like New York, they have Oaxaca. And the city of Oaxaca is a melting pot of about 65 different cultures. The indigenous Mexican people, long ago when the Spaniards conquered Mexico, they drove the indigenous people up to these crazy mountains in Oaxaca, and also into areas like Acapulco and what have you. And they basically isolated these tribes from each other on the different mountain ranges. And even though that was 500 years ago, to this day, each mountain range is basically a different tribe. So you have like the Mijes that live on this mountain range, and you have the Zapotecs that live on this mountain range. And these mountains go on forever. And every mountain range will be a different native tribal unit, so to speak. They're very modern and normal, but with that comes tribal delicacies that are specific to each one of their native way of life, and then it all culminates in Oaxaca. So if you love authentic, real Mexican food, Oaxaca will just have you from restaurant to restaurant having just totally different cuisines. Then if you happen to be into the alcoholic beverages, the Dos Equis factory is literally like a mile from there. So the Dos Equis is like super yummy. And then, but also Oaxaca is where they make mezcal. And you go, I think it's a little bit north of the city. I get turned around there. And just like one would tour wineries in,
In this glass, my Sazerac, this is Carla's glass. You know what it was? Mezcal. Drinking a mezcal old fashioned.
Nice.
She drank it. I didn't even get to try it.
Well, it was a baby old fashioned.
I apologize for interrupting you, but I thought it was great that you were talking about that.
So what Carla's going to do is she's going to make you take her to vacation in Oaxaca, Mexico.
Absolutely.
You can spend a week there doing some language. In the morning you can do some like language school, like for $150 you can sign up and like go take Spanish class in Oaxaca.
Nice.
Work on those Spanish skills. Tour around like the colonial city, and then you can of course dine your way around, all things yummy. But then you can go out and you can tour the mezcalerias. I don't know if that's what they're really called, but just like when you go to Napa, there's wine country and you go from winery to winery. Like literally there's a mezcaleria over here, there's one over there, and you get really hammered, but you will taste. To me, the finest mezcal is far better than the finest tequila.
Okay, so those were missionary trips, but is that something that you could help us with if we wanted to go on an adventure into that area?
Well, we could plan something. I mean, like one leg of what I do is I do a lot of pre-planned trips, and there'll be 9 or 10 seats available, and we market to a specific type of person that we think our adventure trips, like you're either like totally into it or you're like, why in the world would anybody do any of those things? Like, but one thing we do is if we have a group of 6 or more, we'll plan a custom trip that is based off of life experience, not out of a catalog. And it's when you connect with the locals on that local level, I couldn't drive you around Oaxaca, but I could tell you these are the things we want to do, and I could find somebody that will drive us around Oaxaca that I know personally that I would trust would keep us safe and all that fun stuff. And so it's to me, it's if somebody wants to come and do Florida and have the absolute time of their life, call me up. We'll fill a van, and we will have you will go home and think my life is just beginning, because I will open up a whole new world to you. and
if you call Wayne, you got to tell him that you saw him on Travel Tuesdays for Foodie Fans.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if your ideal day is to wake up and jump out of an airplane, then like go like wake surf in the afternoon, and then after you wake surf, clean up, hit a nice dinner, and then after you hit a nice dinner, maybe like go out and stay up probably way past your bedtime. And then somewhere in that nighttime, have some other adrenaline pumping crazy adventure. That's the kind of day we do. And we don't usually do one day. We usually do 8 days in a row like that. And so it's a very, I don't want to say it's a specific form of travel, but hyper local, hyper active, and I believe when you travel, like you should just experience as much as you possibly can while you're out and about in a new place. And you can sit on a beach anywhere. You don't need me for that. You don't need you for that. It's
especially if you live in Florida.
If you want something cool, if you want something that people will not believe what you did, that's what I do. I call it like living the Insta life. Nice. You see all that stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and you go, man, I wish I coulda. Well, we stack all those I wish I coulda things together, and we just crush them.
So at home, since you've been all over the world and you've eaten cuisine from every end of the earth, what do you cook?
What do I cook? If I'm home long enough to cook. I grew up when I was a teenager in Italian kitchens, so I love Italian food. I whip up a lot of Italian food. I'm a grill master. I love anything cooked on fire. I love the smoker. So like, what do I cook? I would say the cheesiest, like craziest dish that I'm most well known for is 2 things. One is I do a shrimp fajita nacho bite, and then I also do this cheese dip that everybody asks for if I'm bringing. Like we go to like something where like everybody's bringing something, one of those like covered dish things or whatever. Will you bring the cheese dip, Wayne? And so I get asked for that. And then I may or may not have won a handful of chili cook-off contests.
Chili, I love chili. I've never won, but I took second place once.
Nice. Yeah, my chili is. I watched a documentary on how peppers work, and I learned how to layer peppers in to where the heat doesn't just smack your lips. It like goes from the inside of your body to the outside of your body. So when you're eating my chili, it's very flavorful, and you're like, oh man, the flavor is so good. And then all of a sudden, like the endorphins are kicking, and you're going, I'm dying, but you're still able to.
But you want more
flavor, yeah. And
I heard you say cheese, and my eyes just like glazed over, and I stopped listening after that. I was like,
cheese. Yeah, you need the cheese dip after you eat the chili.
There you go. So I never watched a documentary. I just kind of got lucky and figured out that I can make a yellow salsa with pineapple, fresh, sweet pineapple, yellow bell peppers, little
That got
garlic.
that got my wife. That got
And
my wife.
habaneros.
Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. I use habaneros.
Yeah, I like
Because
habanero.
habaneros hit you in the back of the throat. So you get that sweetness on the front end, and then the heat hits you. And it doesn't matter. You want more of that sweetness. And I use lime chips, the ones with a hint of lime. I use those with it, so it's even better.
Oh, yum. So yeah, I'd pound down a jar of that, no problem.
Some onions too.
Yeah.
A few other ingredients, but the main ones, habanero and pineapple.
Yeah, somehow me and this other guy got into like who could make the hottest pot of chili thing. And like, and all the pepper heads would just absolutely love it. But when you get into the level of like extracts and what have you, I mean, you take that habanero extract or a ghost pepper extract, and you just make stuff that would melt the pot, and it's just like, and it just from the inside out, and it's just wonderful. But that's how heat should be. Like to me, I don't really care for like a Tabasco-y or like cayenne peppery thing where it's on the lips, like because then you don't get to enjoy the food. But where like you start sweating and like it heats you from the inside, like that's my
sure.
Deal.
So Carla's whispering in my ear. So my son belonged to a fantasy football league, and his friend grows Carolina Reapers. And he brought a bunch of Carolina Reapers over for my son to put inside of, I think he put it in tequila. And he had some extras. So for the draft of this fantasy football team, they had a draft party. Carla made a Carolina Reaper cheesecake.
Oh, lovely. I don't like cheesecake, but I would have probably really enjoyed the Carolina Reaper tequila.
It was unreal. It all disappeared. They ate it all. It was so good. It was so hot, but it was good. Because, those were homegrown Carolina Reapers. They were really good. But, you mentioned the ghost peppers. I have a hard time with most ghost pepper sauces because they tend to be very molasses. And I'm not a huge fan of that. But I could see it working really well in a chili, though.
Yeah, I mean, you got to blend it all in, like, and it's just one of my, I guess, a secret ingredient is when I make like super hot chili, I'll throw in like I'll dice up a bunch of sweet jerkin pickles and throw them in there, and it just does something to like distract you from the heat, I guess, and it just allows you to tolerate more of the intensity, and kind of make you, because we all know our bodies like kind of are addicted to the sugar or whatever, so that sweetness just keeps you wanting to take another bite. But
so we've talked about some of these great places that you've gone to around the world. Is there a place that you were told, look, you got to go here if you're there, and it disappointed you?
Oh, and it disappointed me. I'd say that happens a lot, because I think most people have marginal experiences at best. Very like and that sounds horrible, but
no, I agree.
I mean, I've eaten at K. Paul's in New Orleans, by far the best meal I've ever had in my life. Like a 7-course meal that like literally every morsel I put into my mouth, I thought there's no way it can get better than this. And all the way until my last bite, it just kept getting better and better. Every meal came with a drink paired with it. Like, I mean, just like everything was mind blowing. Mahogany's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like you order your filet and your lobster by the ounce, and it's probably the best steak I've ever had. And I've eaten a lot of steak. But as far as like places you need to go and then like turn out bad, I guess I purge those from my memory. But I'm sure we've had them because not everybody's taste is the same. I mean, I could take you to my favorite place and you'd be like, not
True.
my,
A lot of it is subjective. Yeah.
and the Greek corner. If you're not into like really citrusy and lemony food, like
Sure.
you won't like it, But if you enjoy that citrus tang, like you'd be like, on a hot summer day, it's just so refreshing to me.
Yeah.
So, but somewhere that I do not like, man, I'm just trying to think.
So while you're thinking about that, I want to share something with you.
Please.
We have a group. We just started it very recently, so we don't have a lot of members of the group yet. However, the idea behind the group is that some of these places you're talking about, and of course, your personal contact information for US cable tours and everything else goes into that group. So you share how to get a hold of you, and then of course, a couple of tips here and there, maybe a recipe. That way our listeners can go to that group and in one fell swoop find the interesting stuff. And if they see that you love K-Paul in New Orleans, maybe they'll come listen to this episode and find out why.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because I've been to a lot of really expensive places that were rubbish, and I won't. There's not a restaurant in Vegas that rolls my socks up and down. Like,
you're the second guest we've had that had a hard time with Vegas, and you know what? I can't think of anything in Vegas either because it's all glutton.
I mean,
there's nothing.
There's a diner down on Fremont. They serve a $2.99 shrimp cocktail, and they do have the best pancakes. Some of the best pancakes I've ever eaten. I don't know the name of it. I was really intoxicated, but $2.99 shrimp cocktail. You walk down Fremont, it's almost to the end on the left, and it's an old diner, been there forever. And like, I just remember those pancakes. Maybe it was the drunkenness, or maybe it was just those pancakes are really good. I mean, who doesn't want a giant shrimp cocktail and pancakes? I mean,
it makes perfect sense. I have it every other night. Maybe not. So, I gotta say before we go on, I'm gonna put this out there one more time. I challenge our listeners: if you know of a place in Las Vegas, please let us know. We'd love to talk to the owner or bartender or somebody because we want to send people to Vegas. We love Vegas. It's a fun place to be, but we're the fun foodie people. Yeah. We need to find the food there.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me that what holds Vegas back is they're doing such volume that they miss the fine details. So you go to a Wolfgang Puck's or something like that.
There has to be local places though.
And it's just like, whereas that diner, you could tell it was just old Vegas. Like, it wasn't fancy. There was like none of the mop and glow kind of stuff. It was just an old diner. And I've eaten at some places like out in Henderson that are really good. But they were local. I couldn't remember the name of them, for me, I like old Vegas over New Vegas any day of the week.
Fremont, definitely. Have you been to the Container Park?
I don't think I have been to the Container Park.
It's near Fremont area, and it's really cool. They built shipping. It's kind of like the new place out here in Lake Nona. I can't think of the name of it. Bossy Park. Have you been to Boxy Park in Lake Nona area? It's shipping containers turned into kind of like food trucks, but it's just a cool place to go have a drink and walk around. It's safe, it's almost like an outdoor shopping area.
I'll have to check that out when I'm over there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I have been to the pinball museum.
The what?
The pinball museum in Las Vegas. My wife was not thrilled with that outing.
Okay, so my wife's not going to be happy that you told me about that.
Well,
I'll be there.
They have about 5,000 machines in a building in Vegas somewhere.
That's awesome. All right.
Okay.
So
His wife will be at the spa. You have fun.
yeah.
That is fine. It's a great place to be.
So let's pretend for a moment you have an extra $1,000 in your pocket each month. What would you spend it on? And it can't be business.
$1,000 extra a month. What would I spend it on? Wow. I would spend it on some kind of experiences. At the end of the day, life is about experiences, and um, $1,000, it doesn't go far. When it comes to travel, like, I guess it can, but I would use $1,000 for travel, for experiences, for just gratifying my curiosity of all things new.
Makes perfect sense. It's funny. I ask that question to every guest, and I know you're on a show about food and travel, and part of it is the fact that my guests kind of gravitate towards the show because it interests them. But
Mhm.
at the same time, there's a common theme. Pretty much every guest is the same thought process. I'd travel more. I'd go find great food or great beverage somewhere in the world.
Yeah,
I really think that there's a passion there that goes through most of us.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. So many people, like, they look at the life we live and they think, oh, you guys are so extravagant, and you must be rich and all those things. And while we are definitely better off than some and not as well off as others, um, um, you know, we figured out a formula for how to travel and make it work. You can go anywhere in the world if you'll just book a ticket.
There you go.
Like when we went to the Philippines, it's literally the other side of the world. I have no idea how to get to the Philippines, so I start making some phone calls. And I ran to a guy like you, and I'm like, "What do I do? What do I need to do? Somebody new." And they're like, "Well, you need this, and you need this, and you need this." And at the end of the day, whenever we're dreaming about going somewhere, the first thing I do is I get on Skyscanner, or you're gonna hate that, but like Skyscanner.
Actually, it's funny. I use it too.
But just one of those things, because I can look at flights in an instant and just get an idea of okay, if I want to go to London, how much is it going to cost me from Orlando? And
I gotta share with you. The truth is, and with our listeners, the truth is, I love that you look at Skyscanner. I look at it too. And half the time I give it out, and I give Hopper out to my clients as well, because airfare. Gone are the days of the travel agent where you paid us and we paid the airline for your ticket, and we're basically cashiers. That's gone. I'm an advisor now. I share information with you.
yeah,
And the truth is, air flights don't really make us any money. We will help you as much as we possibly can. And sometimes that means that you book it yourself. And
Yeah.
if that's the case, so be it. But my goal is to make sure that we take as good a care of you as I possibly can.
yeah.
Whether I make money on it or not, I want to help.
But what we do is first is we go, okay, oh, it's $300 a head to get there, right? Okay, so we got to come up with $900 to get to London, and I wonder how much it'll cost me to get back. Okay, so it's believe it or not, I've flown round trip to London for less than like $350
I
round
believe
trip.
it. And right now, go for it.
Yeah, so but once you book the ticket, then you go, okay, I'll book a ticket 6 months out for something I want to do, and okay, where do I want to stay? And you got time to figure it out. Call a guy like you. Hey, is there any hot deals in London I know about? Right, and you've got something, and then you book your accommodation. Then you start filling in the gaps of the other experiences you want to have. And, I think, unfortunately, like the Airbnbs of the world and those sorts of things, while they're cool and kind of trendy, and they certainly provide a value of service, they're also kind of taking away in a sense because they're steering everybody to the same experiences.
Right.
You know, when like it, so you miss that granular experience because all the cattle is going to this place and all the cattle is going to that place
Sure.
because it's what they have become knowledgeable about, you know. And the first thing I do when I land somewhere and I know I'm going to be there for 3 or 4 days is I start making friends.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I want to know. And then where do you guys like to eat dinner? Would you like to go? I'd love to take you.
There you go.
You'll break bread, and then they'll help you find other cool things you would never know about. And you know, so it's but there's no reason everybody shouldn't be a world traveler if they have it in their heart and soul, because it's not as expensive as people think it is.
That's right.
If you break it into chunks, and you know, and so anyway, fun stuff. What else you got for me there, Bryce?
So you know what's interesting? I'm looking at the clock, and you are officially the longest interview we've ever had.
Do I get a prize for that?
Yeah, we
Did I
need
win a
to
cruise?
That's actually really cool. You've been an amazing guest already. I do have a couple of more questions for you, and then we're going to bring Carla on so she can give her commentary. So, when I say culinary, what comes to mind?
You know, I hear culinary, I think fancy, like, you know, and not that it is, but culinary is like, to me, the art form of cuisine, of food, of dining. And a lot of people can cook. A lot of people can make great food, but then there's some people that are true like culinary artists, and they understand how the foods interact. Like they understand how the foods interact on a level with each other. Like the K. Paul's experience, like that was a true culinary kind of artistic experience to where it was just mind blowing. So I think culinary, I think a true artist, a true master, a true like the sensei level of understanding of food.
Nice. Okay, so last question before I bring Carla on.
All
I
right.
say cocktail, you say
Yes.
You're not the first person who's told me that. I'll drink to that.
Yes, please.
All right. So without further ado, I am going to ask you to hang on for just a second because Carla's foodie facts go very quickly, but I really want to get your take on what she has to share.
All right.
So hang out for just a moment off screen, and we'll be right back with you.
Sounds good.
Welcome, Carla.
Okay, so first, I'm a little mad at Wayne for saying he doesn't like cheesecake. He clearly has not had mine. We need to fix that. But also, my new favorite phrase is roll your socks up and down. I'm going to be using that. So, Fun Foodie Facts Adventure Food Edition. Adventurous eating doesn't necessarily mean exotic food. It could mean you're grabbing that milk that's been sitting in the refrigerator for too long and taking a chance. But we're going to talk about actual cuisine this time. Escamole. I apologize if I butchered that word. It is a Mexican dish containing ant larvae from an agave plant. They're supposed to taste kind of buttery and nutty. I'd eat it. Escargot. Escargot, not escargot. The T is silent. It's snails. You give me a plate full of snails with garlic and butter, and I will devour it. You show me a snail on a sidewalk, I'm going to scream like a Bieber fan and run the other direction. Steak tartare. It's raw meat with an egg and some olive oil and some pepper, and it sounds really gross. I love it. Le Cellier in Epcot has it as an appetizer, and it was actually part of the first meal Bryce and I had as a married couple. And then finally, gator. Wayne talked about the Everglades. You can't talk about the Everglades without mentioning some gator. A lot of people think it's exotic. Us, Floridians and Southern people, it's just a staple. And it does taste a lot like chicken. Take baby steps and try some gator.
All right. Thank you, Carla. So, I I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on that, Wayne? Anything catch your eye or your ear?
I think I've had all of them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wait. You had the Mexican dish?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
I've eaten lots of things in Mexico.
Sure, of
I've
course.
had the worm, like, yeah.
Who hasn't had the worm? Come on now.
Yeah, at the Mescaleria, they actually have plates full of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Escamola, yeah. The gator, the escargot. As she was listing them off, I was like, yes, 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 yes. Steak tartare. That's a big yes for me. It's funny when you're in France, like literally they have steak tartare, American hamburger, duck, some pasta dish, and a salmon dish, like at every restaurant. And then you either get a sweet or a savory crepe.
So interestingly, yes, we had steak tartare at Les Celliers for our very first meal as a married couple. However, I just realized I'm not on camera. However, my very first experience with steak tartare and my best to date, and Carla will tell you it's just because it was the first time, and the first time, nothing ever compares to the first time, but I still think it was the best. It was in Geneva, and it was just so melt in your mouth. That steak tartare had so much flavor. It was the perfect texture. I would go back there in a heartbeat for it. And I actually was in France doing a study abroad, and I crossed the border into and went up into Geneva. So yes, France. It was pretty much same cuisine,
standard,
same area, same region.
Yeah. But and I also had an amazing steak, which surprised me in Italy on the Mediterranean coast. We were in Nice and we popped over and drove about an hour in along the coast, stopped at a restaurant, and of all things, I ordered a filet, and it was mind blowing how delicious that steak was because I just wasn't expecting it at all.
Right. For me, it was Antalya, Turkey, in the marina. I actually had a filet. And again, for me, listeners know I don't really care for a filet. I actually would rather have a ribeye or a porterhouse any day of the week. But that was the best filet I've ever had.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that just was what their choice was.
sure.
But yeah. So as she was spouting those things off, though, I was like, yes, I had fond memories. So
one last question for you, and then I'll let you get on with. I know you're super busy, and I appreciate that you've given us over an hour of your time. That's amazing.
And all this talk, it's time to go out and get some dinner. So
there you go. So one last question for you. We've talked several times tonight, and I have my personal favorite, but I'd love to know yours. Where is your personal favorite place to get alligator?
Oh wow. Favorite place to get alligator. I mean, the challenge with alligators, it comes one of two ways. Like fried gator nuggets or like fried gator nuggets. I've had it blackened and grilled at a couple of places, but very rarely do you find it.
It's too hard to do.
Locally, I like Black Hammock out. It's an old Florida restaurant bar on Lake. The sangria is catching up.
I'll drink for that.
Anyway, look up Black Hammock. It's over Oviedo, Winter Springs area.
Got it.
It's on Lake Jessup. You get to actually dine with the gators. The gators are swimming around all over the place out there.
Okay.
They have airboats that go out of there or whatever, but their gator tail's good, and they have good cocktails at a reasonable price. And you'll be like in old Florida, like kind of thing. So if and then down in the Glades, I have friends that just have alligator.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that with you. I'm really looking forward to that because to date, the very best gator I have ever had is at a place called the Florida Cracker Cafe in St. Augustine, Florida.
Oh, that sounds good.
It is absolutely amazing. Part of it is the dip that they have this amazing sauce. By the way, one last thing that I want to share with you. You kept talking about lumpia. My father was Navy, and then I joined the Navy in Corpus Christi, Texas, and then again in Mayport, Florida. Huge Filipino population, and you could go right off the base and find a little Filipino diner and get fish head soup and lumpia and all of those classic Filipino dishes.
A little bit of pork and noodles, like, oh yeah.
Yes. Pancit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm absolutely a huge fan. I am so jealous. I do plan to eventually go to the Philippines. I just haven't made it there yet.
Well, yeah, we're planning something special, international trip for some of our previous, I call them road trippers, because most of what we do is load up in a van and just, we see all the place we're at, as much
I'll
as
have to try to weasel my way into that one. All right, Wayne. Thank you again.
Sure thing. Bryce.
Very much a pleasure.
Yep. And
let me know if there's anything I can ever do for you, and I'll invite you to our group. Please drop your information, how we get a hold of you. It's uscabletours.com, right?
Yep, uscabletours.com. I think the best thing to do, websites are cool and all, but follow us on Instagram or Facebook at US Cable Tours. Because you can really see like the types of things we're doing, because on our story and in our posts that we make, a large portion of our business is what we call the ultimate wakeboard road trip, where we bring in wakeboarders from around the world because they already have a common interest, and then we just slam as much adventure at them as we can. But then we also do the ultimate adventure road trip, where we'll hit the wakeboard a little bit, but we pack more adventure in instead of the wakeboarding. So, our goal is to live every day to the fullest and just and have an experience that other people dream about.
Real quick, you told me about one of the places you stay in the Everglades. It's like an Indian campground kind of.
Yeah, it's a Native American cheeky. Like the Seminole Indian tribe has a very specific structure that they developed to live in the swamp. When they the Seminole Indian tribe is the only they were never conquered during the wars, and it's because the Europeans didn't know how to fight in knee-deep swamp water. Their style.
I can understand why.
Yeah, their style of battle just didn't work very well in the swamp. And but of course they were pushed into the Everglades back years ago. They had developed this whole kind of culture and way of life. So they have a very specific structure that allows it to cool. It's called a cheeky. And one of our favorite places to stay when we have road trippers is we put them up for a night in a Native American cheeky out in the middle of the Everglades.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to go on one of your trips. I am that kind of an adventurous person. I was looking for a photo to put in the background instead of sangria. My daughter and I did a Jamaican bobsled when we were down in Jamaica. It's not nearly anywhere near the kind of adventure you're talking about. It's just pretty much a roller coaster, free-flowing roller coaster. But I will try any of that kind of stuff. I've done ropes course in the French Alps and zip lining, and I really want to go skydiving. So we're definitely going to have to book a trip with you. Thank you again, Wayne. It's been amazing.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun. When you do these things, you just never know what to expect or what have you. But it's Bryce. It's always good catching up with you. Usually everybody's asked me about like the adrenaline pumping stuff and whatever. And I think a lot of people like kind of overlook the food aspect of great travel. And when we designed our trips, it was like food, natural habitat, adventure, and fun. Like, if you're not eating well, you're not going to have a good time either. So
truth. Yes, food is life.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Wayne.
Sure.
You have a
thing.
great night,
You
okay?
guys have a good one.
If you like what we're doing here, hit subscribe. For more ways to be involved, or if you'd like to know more about how we can help you find the very best in food and wine, by land or by sea, check out our page at foodandwinecruiseplanners.com/podcast.